Hello everyone, welcome back to the Fanm Djanm YouTube channel. My name is Anea, the Special Events Manager here at Fanm Djanm, and I am joined by my friend Carrdi here.
Hi, I am the person behind Reader's Block on Instagram.
Yeah. Today we are discussing Banyan Moon by Thao. This book was published in June 2023 this year, and I'm so excited to dive a little deeper into this story.
In Banyan Moon, we followed 3 generations of women in the Tran family: Hung, Min, and Anne. When Anne receives the call that her beloved grandmother has passed away, she returns home to the Banyan house to confront her estranged mother, memories of her own childhood, and family secrets she never could have imagined. With themes of love, sacrifice, forgiveness, and starting over, Banyan Moon is a story that is sure to strike a chord with many readers.
All right, Carrdi, so I have a question for you. How did you enjoy this book? Did you enjoy this book?
I did. It was very different than all of the books that we've read so far for this book club, because everything else has been very second chance love and romantic love. But this was very familial love. It was a story of generations. It was a story of women. It was beautifully told. Different than what we've done, but still a great story. Okay, so I'm going to get started with our questions for this group. When Anne returns home to the Banyan house this time, she has just had her whole life kind of unravel a little bit and found out she was pregnant. She gets back home and she ends up sticking around for a while. If she hadn't just had her relationship crumble a little bit and her pregnancy information, do you think she would have stayed as long as she did at the Banyan house?
I don't think so. Okay, so I have I have a little bit of a question. In this scenario, has her grandmother still passed away?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think she would have stayed as long, and if let's say her relationship with Noah was perfectly fine, I think she would have gone to the house, mourned the loss of her grandmother, but maybe not go back. I don't know if she would have gone back home, but I don't think she would have stayed at the Banyan house as long as she did. But at the same time, while I'm saying this, I'm also thinking that she probably would, just because being back in that house, especially after losing someone and most of your memories being in that house with that person, and wanting to stay there. Now, I don't know if the relationship with her mother would have gotten to the point it did by the end of the book, just because I think the reason why she was able to understand her mother more was because she herself is becoming a mother, if that makes sense. Yeah. All right, my question to you is, how does becoming a mother for Anne help her understand her own mother more?
I almost feel like it happens with most people. They become mothers and then they start to understand just a different perspective that you gain when you have this little person in front of you and you're like, oh, this is real. So I think it made her maybe a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more understanding, but at the same time I think there was still that little bit of a rift between them, because a lot of their problems came from her mother wanting the same relationship that Anne had with her grandmother. So she probably couldn't understand that jealousy initially, and I think that there was still that one spot there that was maybe missing, but I do think that it made her understand a little bit better. So you get the privilege of following all 3 women from youth to adulthood, old age for the grandmother. Was there one that you felt yourself connecting with a little bit more than the others?
I think there were parts of each of the characters that I think I related to a little bit. There wasn't one that I felt I related to more than the other. I know for Anne, I was a little frustrated at her sometimes, just because I was trying to figure out the anger that she held towards her mother. But at the same time, of course, as the story continues, you're like, okay, I understand, because at times she was putting her relationships before her daughter, and I think I was annoyed by Anne because parts of me relate in that way, where that's happened to me before. So, but then you have Min, who you learn so much about her, and I love the way that we find out information about her actually after she dies. And I was worried that with 3 different perspectives, the voices would sound the same a little bit or similar, and that wasn't the case at all. I noticed that, like, I think it was Min, I was reading her part slower than Anne's, and I was also listening to it on Audible because I like to like know what the voices sound like in that way. I think you did the same thing. Yeah. But even then, I noticed like it was the same person reading, I think, but she was able to like just make it sound different with each character. There's something about, I saw the house as a character in itself, and I also resonate with that and like the relationship you can have with a special place because of the people that make it a special place. So that relationship that Min and Anne had, I can relate to that as well, in my great grandmother, and the special house that she had. So I was like, okay, I get it. And I also understood that sometimes the reason why someone's able to be so sweet and so wonderful to you is because they've learned from how they treated someone else. And even Min says it. She's like, okay, well, I didn't do well with my kids when it came to like mending relationships. So she was like, I'm going to do the best I can with Anne. And that, I was like, it made me understand so many things about people that I know personally. And I was like, wow, like I always learn something from every book that I read, but it's just something about this book and like the beautiful lines, and there are so many times where I was like relating to all 3 of the characters. There's a hint of magic to the Banyan house. Anne feels Min's presence after her death, and we, the readers, also see Min continuing to watch over the house and the family. So I want to know, to what extent do you think there's some kind of true magic here? And to what extent do you think it's a manifestation of Anne's love and grief for her grandmother?
So the book really does personify the house, almost like completely from beginning to end. So it does feel a little sentient at parts. I do think that a lot of it is the manifestation of not only grief but love. I think she spent so much time in this house with her grandmother, and she has all of these memories. There's not a part of that house that her grandmother hasn't touched and her presence hasn't been felt in. So I think in her absence, Anne is able to almost place her in any spot she wants in this house. She's able to feel her there. I think our perspective, we see Min watching over both her daughter and her granddaughter with so much love and adoration. So I don't know that I feel that the house is magic as much as I feel like the house is so full of love and energy from the people who have lived in it for all this time that it feels like they're always there. It feels like it's alive with all of this love and this passion and this care. So Banyan Moon is our first book that is not explicitly romance, a second chance romance. The romantic love story is not at the forefront, but there are so many different types of love seen throughout the book. Which one was your favorite?
Okay, so I am a sucker for a grandmother-granddaughter relationship. But I don't know if that was my favorite. I think my favorite was the relationship between Anne and her baby. Kumquat is what the baby was called during the story, because I feel like Anne was learning, like we said before, like learning about her mother through this process, but also learning parts of herself and learning that, like, you know, that she wanted to be independent. And she also understood why, well, a little bit, she understood why her mother was able to just be such a strong woman and why her grandmother was able to be such a strong woman as well. Also, one thing we did not talk about, which is crazy, and this is a spoiler, that the grandmother's a murderer.
Right?
Like to protect Anne, but also to protect the daughter too.
Yeah, they just placed that right in the story, and you're like, are we just gonna glaze past that? We sure did. And
we did.
To the very end.
Yes, and I thought that they were like, because Anne found out that Hung's father, like, I think she found a picture of who her actual father was and was like, I'm gonna tell her. But I'm like, this secret's bigger. And also sometimes, I don't know, people might not agree, but like sometimes you don't need to know people.
You don't?
Like, and there could be a reason. Obviously there are times where, like, you know, it's for the wrong reason, but sometimes it's for the right reason why you don't know someone. And just trusting that, because he was horrible.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, I have a question. What were your thoughts on the ending, and were you happy where all of the characters ended?
I feel like one of my favorite things about the ending was that we didn't get no closure almost. It didn't really matter the situation, like which character it was. We didn't get like a neat tied off with a bow ending. It feels like the stories are going to keep going. Their lives are not over. It didn't give us like anything final. It's just they're both still trying to figure it out. They're both learning it together. It was beautiful. I think it was nice that we didn't get that closure that you normally feel like you need in a book. I was really satisfied to see that the characters would keep going, that their lives were going to keep going, that we don't get to see the ending because it's not over yet. We don't know what comes next. I was really satisfied with it.
Yeah. I also enjoyed the ending. We've talked about this before, but in TV shows and in books, I enjoy when we're just plopped into someone's life or plopped into this world, and we appreciate the characters, and then we're just taken out and they're still living on. I really enjoyed that too.
Right.
Okay, so now, what was your favorite line or quotes from the book? I feel like there are so many.
There were a lot of them. I wrote so many down. I highlighted so many. I saved them because I just want to go back and read them whenever I can. But I will read one of my favorites from the book. I come from a tribe of women who are ravaged and joyous, loud, raging, tied to our own convoluted histories. We are a knot of branches, mud-speckled and ever-searching, and the man to make his way inside is someone who must grow from the same earth, the same brokenness. Or maybe the men who come to us will only ever be visitors. We claim squatters' rights in our tangled histories. So
Beautiful. Yeah. Do you want to read your other one?
There is another one that I really liked too, and it was about the Banyan house itself. We had just talked about how the house seemed a little bit sentient, but in the end, it's a tragic ending. The Banyan house gets burned down. It burns to the ground in the end. I see Banyan House for what it is, a home for women, a shaggy, worn, and vicious protector of the bruised and tender. We grew up in that house, and in turn, it grew inward on us. It could tolerate no less than our full devotion, even in death. And when we began not to need it, it crumbled, a mirage that could not sustain itself without pain. How about you? What is your favorite quote from the book?
All right, so one of my favorite quotes is from Hung. And she says, I thought I understood some measure of love, but this felt more desperate. I was wild with love, like I could scratch the face off anyone who looked at my child the wrong way. And we see this play out by the death of Anne's father. Out of fear, but also like her knowing that she wouldn't be able to leave him.
Right.
And so for her protection, he is gone and in the swamp. And then there's another one. I was trying to find it earlier. Okay, so this is from Anne's perspective, and I was often alone, but I wound my loneliness around myself like a mink coat, luxuriating in freedom. Just that line itself is just so beautiful. Thao, you are a wonderful writer.
Absolutely.
I have one more. Okay, so this was when Anne was talking to, what's his name, Wes, I think. So yeah, she's talking to Wes about evil, like being evil. So it says, I wonder if you can inherit evil. And she says, maybe, I say. Or maybe it's not something you inherit, but something that runs through you, another person's trauma. Their violence, it sits below the skin until you name it, and you root it out like a cancer. That description of evil or people's trauma was just so beautiful, because there's so many times where we pass things down. You always hear about that, like passing your trauma or pain down, even when it's unintentional, or even if you are trying your best to avoid it, it still happens. And so being able to just name that feeling, it was just beautiful. All right, Cardi, what are we reading next?
Next book we'll read is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. It is a story of two sisters who grow up in different parts of the world and come together after a tragic event and learn about each other, get to discover who they are and who their loved ones are, and more family secrets in that book too. A lot of family secrets.
I'm really excited for that book. I had a professor last semester, she read one of my short stories, and she asked me if I had ever read that book, and she was like, you should really look into it. And so I actually already had the audio book, but I'm excited to get the physical copy. And yeah, so we are reading that book, and then we'll meet on December 1st. And after that, in December, you will see a video up, and we are excited to talk to you about that book. In the meantime, please go in the comments and just let us know if you enjoyed this book, Banyan Moon, and if you have any recommendations for us for the next read or our time in between, that'd be great. So thanks for being here. Once again, my name is Anea.
And I'm Cardi.
And that's it. See ya.